Yo, 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 what is up, my fallopian tubers? Cesario from the Barrio coming back at you with another video for your butt. Today is National Trading Card Day, and I'm just going to go through the 50's baseball cards from Topps that were produced by Topps. They did produce a set. If you want to call it a set, personally, I don't. But if you do, hey, to each their own. But what I don't consider the 51 Tops a set is because it was a game, not necessarily a baseball card set, and it actually came with taffy, and it was in strips of twos, and it had red back, and blue back. And so yeah, it was sold with taffy and strips of two. It wasn't necessarily like in a pack like you would think modern cards are today. But the 52 is considered to be like the birth of the modern day card, baseball card. Look at this beauty, man. Sickle, still considered one of the best sets ever. Topps had like an employee that was working in some other position, and he he collected baseball cards, and he gave him some ideas, brainstorm. He was like, hey, you should put the stats in the back, a story, and all this information. And Topps went with it and came up with this 52. Look at this. I mean, you have the logo right there. Look at this, like the movie theaters, like the stars, like, these baseball players are stars. Bob Feller, he has a simile autograph right there. Just a great looking set. So this is considered to be like the birth of the modern day sets. They released these in 6 series. You gotta remember, this is like Topps kind of winging it, like learning as they go. So they did release this in 6 series, but by the time they were going to release the 6 series, which consisted of cards like 311 to 407, because the set was only 407 cards, not as big as they are today. It was a 407, and they released it in series, so they would release so many at a time. But by the time they got to the last series, football was already in season, baseball was done, and they didn't sell very well. So, they ended up tossing most of them in the Kate Hudson River. But yeah, so number 311 through 47 are considered the short prints and hard to find. Harder to find than most, but that's the 52 Topps. So next, you got the 53 Topps set. Look at this. It's still drawn. It's not exactly a picture yet. You got this Pee Wee Reese right here. We got the team logo and stuff. This consisted of 280 cards, and what's a trip with the 53 series, there's a couple of cards that don't even exist. Card 253, 261, 267, 268, 271, and 275, which were all part of the last series, because they try not to make the same mistake that they made in the first one, and release it in so many series. But the last series was still printed later, and it was in lower quantities. So I think it was like cards 221 through 280 are the last series, and they were short printed compared to the rest. So you'll hear that a lot, like the last series, the cards at the end are are harder to find. They were produced in lower quantities. They weren't produced as much. But even there's other short prints in this, because when they did release all the cards at first, for some reason, card number 10, 44, 61, 72, and 81 were not printed out. So when they did like the second print series or whatever, they released those cards, But look at this. It has like the cartoon. Look at that. What? Was there a rule that barred players from receiving money for services? Yes, in 1859. BH, before holdouts. Right, but cool, you got like batting record right there, even the fielding record. So, that's the next card was the 53. Then you get to the 54. So the 54 had only 250 cards, so it was a lot less cards produced. And so you might want to say, a lot of people think that the later cards, the last cards are always the harder to find ones. But when it comes to the 1954 cards, cards 51 through 75 are the short printed cards, which are harder to find. So it's not even in the middle, it's almost at the beginning. But again, you got the logo, great you know, you got their face, and then you got like an action shot right here. The back, you got colored cartoons. So, man, look at he is also known as the head of the National Broadcasting Company's community activities, where he helps youngsters of all creeds. So you got some nice color in the back. You know, it wasn't as plain Jane as the first couple years. So Topps is just getting better and better every year. And then, so the next year, you get 1955. So these were the very first horizontal cards that were printed horizontally. Same thing, you got the logo there, the beautiful yellow background on this one. So you would get a picture of their face and then a pose. You can see I'm here standing on the steps of the dugout, Sandy Koufax. And they continued with the tradition of the cartoons in color in the back. And look at this. Not in organized baseball. He had no professional stats yet. But, you know, you get information on your height, weight, and stuff. And so this was the first horizontal series. And you also had the facsimile. You know, that's what it's called, facsimile, when it's an autograph that's already on the card. And this one also had a few cards that were never issued. 175, 186, 203, and 209 don't exist. You know, and this and that one. And then you go to 1956, one of my favorites of all time. It might be relatively similar to the 55, but instead of using poses, they used action shots. So you got the face and an action shot, you know, and the team name on the top corner right here. Also had the facsimile. You could barely see the facsimile on this one. The back continued with the colored cartoons. It was all, you know, baseball cards were more kid oriented. At least you could, you know, cartoons that you could read and you would learn. You know what I mean? Because, like, there he goes. Mickey topped the league in homers and tied for the lead in triples in 1955. All right. So sweet card in the 56. So this actually consisted of 340 cards. So the quantity of cards went up. The leagues. This is probably one of the least expensive sets. I mean, even though it's my favorite set, it's kind of one of the least expensive sets to collect. For the reason that there's only one Hall of Famer rookie in this set. You know, other sets, they have a bunch of Hall of Fame rookies, so those few cards alone will add to collecting the set. But in 1956, the only Hall of Fame rookie is Luis Aparicio. All right. And this set also included the league presidents and the first team cards. So 1956, man, one of my favorite looking sets as far as I'm concerned. You know, and then you go to 1957. So this one had 407 cards, just like the 1952. So this is actually the birth of the modern size card. As you can see, the older cards are just that much bigger. All right, just that much bigger, and this is where they came to the modern size, which is 2.5 by 3.5, and it's been like that pretty much ever since. So this one, the lower print run on this one isn't the last series. It's the series with cards number 265 through 352. So it's not always the last series at the least printed. This one, numbers 265 to 352 have the least produced cards, you know. So, man, but look at these beauties. Roberto Clemente. Nice, just simple cards, man. Simple cards. So then you move on to 1958. So this is the first vintage set that I started to collect. You know, I've completed it ever since. And one of the things about this card, so, you know, the 58 has 494 cards. It's the first series that ever had all-star cards. They're at the very end of the set. It included all-star cards. And same thing with the last series, doesn't necessarily mean they're the least printed. A lot of the All-Star cards, like the Mickey Mantle, is like triple printed. All right. And for those of you who don't know what a triple printed is, like say a card, there's 400, but let's say the card sheets hold 75. So you might have on the last, let me hold this up real quick, show you like a card sheet, that the cards are cut out of. So if you say each one holds 75, and on the last series there's only 25 cards, they'll fill in all the other spots with cards that already exist. So that's how you get the double printed and triple printed. So the Mickey Mantle was triple printed because they put it in a couple more times in those sheets. All right. So let me move this a little bit. So the 1958, man, first set I collected. So you heard, and this one had some variations on the first couple, I think cards, the first 108 cards. Some were written in yellow and some were in white. All right. And card number 145 in this one was never issued. All right. But this one has the cartoons and the stats, all that great stuff. And one of the things is, so card number 145 doesn't exist. And so, like I said, this is the first, like I said, other sets had cards that don't exist, and I don't know the reason why. But when I was trying to complete this set, and I finally got a hold of a checklist, I saw that card 145 didn't exist. So I looked it up and tried it. And I first, obviously, on YouTube, you ask people, hey, how come 140? And nobody knew why it didn't exist. And that was the first time I actually did some research on baseball cards, and I found out why card number 145 does not exist. I don't know the stories on the other sets and why those cards don't exist, but 145 is an interesting story on this one, why it doesn't exist. I made a video about it once I did that research. I'll probably put the link if you guys are interested in why 145 doesn't exist in 1958. So last but not least, for the 50s, we got 1959. It's almost like the knothole gang right here. So you can see you're looking at Duke Snider through a glory hole right here. I put the mustache on him, and it's on the, it's on the sleeve, so don't freak out. But Duke Snider, the Duke of Flatbush. So you got this simple design with a cool circle. It's a pretty simple design, and a lot of people love this set. In the 52 and 55 World Series, Duke hit 4 homers. Now, Duke Snider, not only did he hit 4 homers in the World Series, he hit more home runs in the 1950s than any other player. Look at that. He was just in 42, 40, 42, 43, 40. He hit more home runs in the 1950s than any other player did in the 1950s. Duke Snider, a book of consistency. Even in this Ebbets Field thing right here, he is the Duke of Flatbush. It has his name right there on the legacy of the Brooklyn Dodgers. So there you go, guys. Hope you find that interesting. All the cards from the 50s of Topps. The 52, the 53, the 54, the 55, the 56, the 57, the 58, and the 59. Hope you enjoy, guys. Love the hobby, and just keep collecting baseball cards forever, as said. Ciao! And Andy Popko from the Dodgers was card number 1 in the 1952 Topps set. So a lot of people considered his card number 1 to be the first modern baseball card. It's all on how you see it.